Welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast with your host, Chris Anderson. In this show, Chris and his guests will share their knowledge and experience on how to go from zero to successful entrepreneur. They have built their businesses from scratch and are now ready to give back to those who are just starting. Let's get ready to learn, grow, and elevate our businesses. And now, your host, Chris Anderson.
All right, welcome back to the Elevate Media Podcast. I am Chris Anderson, your host. In today's episode, I'm going to explain what a podcast host site is and what you need to look for within your podcast host site to make sure you're getting the best for your buck. So if you're ready, let's dive into it. All right, so what is a podcast host site? A podcast host site is the platform that distributes your podcast to the podcast directories. So your podcast directories are Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcast, all of those that people actually go to listen to your show. So those are the podcast directories. The podcast host site are platforms like the one we recommend to all our clients, Buzzsprout. There's many others, Anchor, Libsyn, Podbean, but we highly recommend Buzzsprout. And no, we're not sponsored by Buzzsprout or anything like that. However, we do have an affiliate link if you are looking to get started with Buzzsprout. But we've been using it since the beginning. We were recommended to all our clients, and it's just fantastic. So those are host sites, and those are what you go and upload your episodes into online and schedule them for release. It's where you put your show description, your tags, who the guest is or who the speaker is, connects you again on all these podcast directories. So in this episode, we're going to dive into three main things you want to look for in your podcast host site. So make sure you stay around and get all three of them, and then for an additional bonus tip at the end. Again, a podcast host site is the platform that you go to, take your audio files, upload them to the host site, where then the host site should push out your episodes as scheduled to all the directories like your Apple, Spotify. And this is where you control everything in the back. This is where you get your RSS feed. This is where you can change your logo, change your title, change your show description. So it's important to make sure your host site is reliable, that it's going to get the job done, that it's actually putting you in all the directories, that it's easy to use, it's easy to contact someone for help. And you got to make sure you understand if it's paid, what you're getting or what you're not getting, and what features they have. So that's why you want to make sure you're looking for these three things before you choose your podcast host site. So the first consideration you've got to look at when choosing your podcast host site is how user-friendly is it? How easy is it to go onto the system, navigate it, and understand how to upload your episodes, how to connect to the directories, how to get help? These are all things you got to look out for. So how easy is it to use? So something within that is to look at, the interface or the dashboard when you log in. Are things clearly marked? Are there tabs across the top like Buzzsprout that clearly defines what areas are what so you can go to? This makes it super simple to navigate once you log on versus trying to, find small little titles, different places or things all over the place. Just, is it a really clean layout that is, once you get on the dashboard, super simple to follow and understand where things are and how to get to them? And then the customer support. Is it, one, easy to get a hold of customer support or communicate with them? Is it clearly defined where to go to start that process? And then how quickly does customer support get back with you to solve your issue or answer your question? Those are all things you want to look for, or at least look for reviews about, or ask other people who are using that site about the customer service. Because if you have an issue, you want to be able to easily connect with the customer service representatives, and you also want to get answer in a timely manner. And so these are things to look for as well when you're looking at the dashboard or the user interface. And then, of course, you might be using a different podcast host right now, and you might want to migrate over to a new one. So what is that process like? How simple is that to migrate from one podcast host site to this new one? Is the new one make it super simple? Is it very clear with the instructions how to do so? And so that's something to look for, especially if you're already got a show on a podcast host site and you're looking to switch after you listen to this and take these things into consideration to a new one. That might be easier and better for you. And then the second thing you want to look out for when you're trying to choose your podcast host site is the distribution. Does this podcast host site distribute your episodes to all the directories? Not only that, do they do it automatically? So once you're connected to the directories, when you upload an episode and schedule it at that scheduled time, do they automatically put it out there, or do you have to manually submit it each time and say release? So for example, I'm going to reference Buzzsprout because we use that and our clients use that. Buzzsprout, you go and schedule an episode. You can pick the day, the time, and the future. You can do it immediately, or you can do it as like a wait until you're ready type of thing. They have a super simple process with a tab for directories, and you just click some buttons, and the majority of the directories are submitted to for you. Now, the bigger name ones that have a little bit more behind it, like Apple or Google, where you have to sign in with your login information, again, they lay it out step by step, and you just click some buttons. You put in your RSS feed, which they give you within the instructions. You log in, and it's a super simple process. So once you do that, again, Buzzsprout makes it super clear to do so. Once you've done that, you're in the directories. And then when you schedule an episode for release, it automatically pushes it out to all of those directories for you. So you don't have to do it manually, and you don't have to worry about it. So does your host site do that for you to make things even simpler? Because being a podcast host, running a show, if you're doing it on your own, is a time commitment. And so you want to be able to have things automated the best you can. And then is there any integration with other tools? Is there ability to monetize through the platform? Do you have stats and metrics that you can see through the platform itself? Those are all things to think about. Does it connect with other, outside tools? Things to think about. So again, Buzzsprout has the ability to see metrics right there in their dashboard. It also has a monetization tool connected to it. So you have the ability to possibly monetize straight from Buzzsprout through their marketplace. You can automatically add affiliates links into your show based on your settings. So does the podcast host site have these integrations that you can use? Can you get the metrics and see how your show's doing it really simply and easily through this podcast host site? All things you need to look at and think about when you're considering a podcast host site. And then your RSS feed. This is what is basically in the background. This is what is connected to your show and all these directories. It goes and connects you. It's like your address or your phone number. And so does it create an RSS feed for you? Does it connect it to the directories reliably? And is that connection there really good? Like, do your episodes actually get out? Does your logo actually transfer over? We had someone we talked to the other day whose logo doesn't transfer over normally from their host site. So is that RSS feed connected well? And is it unique and reliable? And then the third thing you want to consider when looking at podcast host sites are the features and the scalability. So for one, what is the storage and bandwidth within this host site? Some are free, some you have to pay for a certain amount. For example, again, Buzzsprout is free up to 90 days, and then they no longer are housed in the directory. So you just pay the next tier and it's for a certain amount of hours per month. And you pay, I think unless it's changed, it's like $8 for the first tier a month. For if you're doing one episode a week, under an hour, that should be plenty. And it just charges each month. You get your new allotment. It keeps them all there, unlimited, as you continue to grow. So, we're coming up on this is episode 272, I think. I think we paid $40 a month for the top tier, 50 maybe, on Buzzsprout, and all our episodes from the very end are there. And yeah, so what's that look like? Does it have that feature? Does it have that storage capability? Make sure you understand that before you get into one, and maybe it doesn't keep forever, or maybe their fees are a lot higher. Those are things to look at when choosing a podcast host site. And again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, within those features and scalability, understanding your metrics, or at least being able to see it, is going to help you grow. So this feature needs to be on your podcast host site. Are you able to go and see what your downloads are per episode? Are you going to be able to see overall how you've grown? Are you going to see what countries you've been listened to in, and how much? What's the percentage per country, per device, Apple, Android, other? Like, are these metrics available to you on this podcast host site? Like Buzzsprout has that, and more. And that'll continue to grow as these businesses, as these host sites develop as well. So that's something to look at, is the metrics. What do you actually get to see on the back end when you log into this host site, and not have to go to a bunch of different other places to find different metrics? So that's something to take into consideration again. And again, kind of going back to, the scalability and the bandwidth, like, as your show grows, does this platform, this host site, have the ability to grow with you? Are you able to grow and house all these episodes and, get to those levels with no issues? You got to look into that in the back end. As far as like what your goal is for your show, can this podcast host site sustain in the future, long term, my show? I was talking to an individual who's on a host site I've never heard of. It's called Substack. I haven't heard of it. Will that one be around forever? Who knows? Maybe they'll outdo Buzzsprout one day. Maybe they'll outgrow it. But you've heard, a lot of people have heard of certain host sites, like I mentioned at the beginning, and those have went through the test, and they've grown, and they've been adapting and changing with the platform. So that's something to think about too. And things happen and things go away, and you should be able to switch over to others if that happens. But you got to think about that. Will this be able to grow with me and my show? Something to take into consideration. And here are the bonus things you should think about when looking for a podcast host site. So, of course, pricing. You got to know your budget for your show, especially if you're just starting out. Maybe you don't have one. So maybe you're just, throwing money into this machine to be able to get it off the ground like I did when I started. So is a paid tiered system like Buzzsprout going to be worth it for you? Even at the highest tier of $50, I think it is. Are you going to be able to manage that? Is that okay for your budget? And you're the only one who knows your budget. So you have to know your limits and understand what you're going to do. But in my opinion, it's worth it because it houses all my episodes each month, no matter how many I do, forever. And again, they use the system. That's why I like it. So it was worth it to me. And you can start a lower tiered system. A lot of people like the free option, but sometimes the free options, you're missing some things, and a lot of the times you get what you pay for. And so you got to think about that, the pricing situation, what you're willing to invest until your show's making money to get things started. And then is there a community or networking possibilities within this host site? Buzzsprout puts out a newsletter. They have a YouTube channel explaining certain things about podcasting and their platform. They have a Facebook group. So you're able to connect and learn and meet with people who are on the same platform, have questions, or going through it, and you're able to learn and grow and connect with new people that way. And I think it's pretty cool. And not all of them have that. And so is there connective options? Is there networking options? Is there community options within your host site? And does that matter to you? Maybe it doesn't. And so that's something else to look at when you're trying to decide on your host site. So again, these were the three considerations. Is it user-friendly? How is the distribution and integration? What are the features and the ability to scale? And then the bonus ones, the pricing and the community network that they have within them. Those are all the considerations that we went over in this episode. I hope you learned something. I hope you're able to, take this away and make the right choice with your podcast host site. And if you're got a show or you're just starting a show or you're trying to migrate over and you want to check out Buzzsprout, we're going to leave the link in the description here on the episode. Again, this is our affiliate link. So, you click that and you sign up, I think we get like a credit or we get enough to, feed our fish over here. So just kidding. It's nothing crazy, but I think you also get a gift card by using that affiliate link. So it helps you out as well. And go out there, keep elevating your life, elevate your business, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Elevate Media Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. See you in the next episode.